All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today I wanted to update my yearly video of should you start playing Black Desert right now in 2025, and is it worth it? So as we all know, Black Desert is a little bit of a different game, or an MMO that's different from your traditional MMO. And I wanted to answer a lot of the questions people might have, and you know, as a person who has been playing a lot of traditional MMOs, also, I've been playing this game since it came out on NA and EU, which was 2016. So, yeah, I can answer a lot of the questions that you guys may be wondering. And if you have a specific one, I might leave some timestamps in the description so you can find a specific one. So, let's start off with the first thing. What is Black Desert and how is it different from traditional MMOs? By the way, I have a list of questions that I'm just going to look at. So BDO is a sandbox MMO compared to, you know, let's use World of Warcraft as an example, or Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy. And in those games, your ultimate goal is to get to the max level, do the end game dungeons, raids, get the best gear, and then you wait till the next expansion and do it again. In BDO, it's a little bit different because your end game is what you want it to be in terms of, let's say you want to get best gear and or the max. Well, there is no max level. There are soft caps and everything. And what that means is it just gets exponentially harder to level at a certain point. So there is no cap. And I would say the biggest difference between traditional MMOs versus BDO is the gear difference. And you know how in other games, your gear kind of gets not erased, but becomes irrelevant when a new expansion comes out. That's also something we'll be talking about as well. But in BDO, all the gear that you get, and let's say everything you have, even if some new expansion comes out, your gear doesn't necessarily get invalidated because they come up with new things where you can like transfer your gear and or upgrade it. So let's say you are ahead now, you have a slight advantage when new stuff comes out versus a new player. And there are a lot of catch-up mechanics, which we'll be talking about. But either way, the sandbox is a lot of other things to do, life skilling, PvP, PvE, and yeah, it's a little bit different, but we'll talk about that. So, question one that I've actually gotten a lot is BDO easy to start now, and what is the cost to play? So, as a baseline, I generally look at video games as in, you know how games are like 60 to 70, maybe $100, a AAA game that you would buy. So let's break it down and just, I guess, for an easy number, let's just say $100, right? If you are only going to spend that much on a game, how far can you get, and will you still have a lot of fun and get tons of hours in it? I think so, actually. I've seen a lot of people who are completely free to play and completely, you know, people who spent a lot. So I've seen both sides of the spectrum. And I think with BDO, there are actually a lot of catch-up mechanics, like there's seasonals. So if you've ever played like an ARPG game, Diablo, Path of Exile, something like that, they have seasons similar to that, except your gear, it gets converted into like your main gear later on. So it's not like you can get everything and it gets reset, it just gets upgraded. So that's how it works in BDO and not just a complete reset. And yeah, so the cost to play this game, I think there are some things in this game that are very convenient to get and will help you over time. But the price to play, you know how in other games, let's do a comparison. If you were to, you know, get a monthly sub, those are generally $15 a month. They have the equivalent of that in here, which is the value pack. It gives you a bunch of items as well. And, or just like, you know, extra buffs that you can also buy individually. So the sub is not mandatory in this game. And I think that's a good thing. Everything should be optional, which for the most part it is. and how are the events? Can you get them for the most part spent with low spender, or if you just play a long time, can you get it for free? And yeah, just by playing the game, this is a very event-driven economy, and so there's a thing called the central market, which is basically the in-game marketplace, right? And there is a Pearl tab, which you can get stuff that other people spend money on, and you don't have to. You just pay with in-game currency. And sometimes, depends on the events, they give a lot of stuff, and you can get it for free as well. So yes, you can play free to play or low spending. And there are also other subs and stuff as well that, we'll talk about it another time. So we talked about easy to start, seasonals, gear catch-up mechanics. Can you catch up to like someone who's been playing the game for 8 years if you were to start today? I think it would take you a little bit of time, but the I guess time it would take on average is, probably 6 months to a year to fully understand the game and be, at somewhat competitive to someone who's been playing for a while now. Maybe even less time, actually, depending on how dedicated you are. Like, do you watch a lot of streams, videos? Do you read a lot of guides and everything? Or it might take a little bit longer if you're just playing this for fun, casually, at your own pace, which I think is probably the better way to do it, actually. Never burn yourself out. But anyway, the monetization, and is this game pay to win? That's the next question. So, as we all know, Black Desert, if you've heard of the game, and or someone, let's say your friend, probably introduced it to you or tried to explain it to you, is there pay to win? And the answer is ultimately yes. But I've seen a lot of people who do just fine low spending. And to give you an example of pay to win is if you look into Cash Up, there's a lot of like outfits and everything. And first and foremost, I always support if you are just buying an outfit or something, and just because you like the appearance or the cosmetic, and you just like collecting all of anything, that's completely fine. I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But in this game, they have a thing where you can melt it, like basically disenchant costumes and cosmetics, and you get a item called a Cronstone, and those basically protect your gear when you're trying to upgrade it. And so yeah, people who spend a lot could essentially get to endgame gear really fast. However, do people really do that? And I think as a person who's played the game for a long time, you realistically will not find too many of those people. Chances are you will not even encounter those people on a regular. So if you're playing and you just start today, you probably won't even notice. Like, yeah, I think you'll be fine. I think less than like maybe, I don't know, I'd probably say like less than 5%. That's, even then, that's kind of a lot, are just like maxing out the monthly or whatever and selling it. But they do have caps in the game. So for example, like something over here, Pearl item selling limit. A Pearl item is basically something you buy on the Cash Shop, and there's a limit to how many you can sell every week. So yes, you can, but also there's a limit, so you can't just swipe like that much money all at once. So you kind of have to limit yourself through a time gate. And so overall, monetization, I think it's gotten a lot better realistically over the years. In terms of when it first came out, there were a lot of things where just like, oh, pay for convenience, or just pay to skip ahead of a lot of things. Nowadays, it's not as bad. Like, I think you'll be fine without doing all that, but it's just more convenience than winning, to be honest. So the next question. How are the expansions in this game? What is the release cycle, and how does it work? So, you know how in traditional MMOs you get a new expansion, new chapter, something like that every year, right? In this game, it is similar, but one, you don't pay for the expansion. All the DLC and new stuff, it's always free with the game. They do have like new, I guess it's not really like a paid thing, but they have like, oh, bundles is like, this thing is coming out, you can get this exclusive costume or something if you want. But all the regions, all the new zones are completely free. And so even if you start it today and didn't spend any money, would you be able to do everything that a person like me has been able to do? And the answer is yes. So I guess this is what it would look like. So I know this is confusing for a new player, so that's also still confusing. But let's say this is the first thing you see, this like small region right here, like a town or something. And every expansion opens up a new part of the map, right? And that would be considered a new chapter and or a new expansion. And yeah, everyone gets it for free. You can play it just fine. And the schedule for all of this is like you get one big zone every year, but then we get a lot of updates, like, you know, new bosses, updates on all the bosses, PvP, PvE grind spots, and just things added to the region over time. But a new like thing comes out like every year or so yeah, that's the expansions and that's how it works in the game. The next question is, what is the gameplay like? Can you play solo versus group content? How is the PvP? How is the PvE and life skilling and everything? And realistically, BDO is, I would say, about like 90% solo. So as a sandbox game, there's a lot of stuff that you would probably have seen in another MMO. So like, you know, cooking, alchemy, fishing. Those are probably things you've seen in other MMOs. But ultimately, it's kind of like in other games, they have it, but it's not like a main thing that you could do. And is it like profitable in other games? Not so much. In all of these, you can actually progress. Like some of them are profitable to the point where you can play it and do a certain thing. Whereas if someone wants to PvP or grind monsters all day, they can do it. And obviously some things are better than the others and, you know, more efficient. But ultimately you can play whatever you want, and I think the end game goal of, let's say, getting max gear is still the same. However you do it is a little bit different. You don't have to follow a strict linear path towards the end game, which I think is a very nice thing. And so yeah, what makes this game a little bit unique is, you know how in other games there's a set limit of classes. In this game, there's like 30 classes, and talking about balance for every class is a whole new story. But there's a lot of different things to try out, whether you're a, you know, like if you played other games, let's say you want to play a tank or a healer or, you know, ranged DPS, magic class, caster, assassin type. There's a lot of different things. One thing I will say is, there isn't necessarily a dedicated tank or healer role. There are supports, but I would say everyone is, for the most part, considered a DPS or a damage dealer. And you can build your character differently to be more defensive or offensive or, like, you know, team oriented. So there's no skill tree in this game, but there are like crystals, which essentially, you know, it's not a skill tree, but essentially gives the same stats and stuff as you would normally. There are skill abilities for everything, and this is probably the closest to skill trees that we have, like add-ons, enhancements, and obviously your skill lines and everything. But I would say, to answer that question, 90% of the game you're going to be doing solo. The other 10% is like guild stuff. Like, let's say you do bosses with your guild. PvP is obviously a big thing. And or just like PvE grind spots and everything. So if that's what you like, then try the game out. I think it'd be really fun. Just know that if you're thinking about coming into the game with like one of your friends and your goal is to, you know, do everything together, chances are it's not necessarily going to be like that. But like the social aspect, you can do everything as usual. You could form your own guild and everything. So like there are guild systems. There are even benefits of being in the guild, like stat buffs, guild buffs, PvP, PvE events, and guild quests and everything. So if that's something you guys like, you can do those, but it's kind of limited. And the next question, what is the player like population in this game, and what is the in-game economy like? So in terms of players, I actually think this game is still pretty popular, and I would honestly put this in like maybe a like top 5 MMOs, maybe top 10, and it still has a pretty decent population, and it's on like PC, it's on console, it's also you know, you can play it on Steam as well if you don't want to download the client. So yeah, it's on console, PC, and I think ultimately the player population is pretty good. If you were to run around in a city, you would still see a pretty decent amount of players. And how does the server system work? So there are regions, right? Let's say, think of a tree, like at the top there's a region, and then under the region you play on like NA and EU. And how does it work? And it's not like everyone is on one dedicated channel. There's a server where you can choose a lot of different things. So let's say I was on Calpheon 2, which I am. Someone who is on like Calpheon 1 would see they have the same thing, but they wouldn't see the same players. So that's how you spread out the population, but everyone can swap between all of these. So it's not like if you lock in on one of them, you're locked in. You could swap every now and then. And especially if you are a new player, there are dedicated servers for all of you guys. That way, like, you know, veteran players like me can't just go and grief the new players. So, you know, you can play it at your own pace as well, which I think is a very good thing. And how is the economy in this game? How does gearing and everything work? As I talked about before, there's a central market, which is basically the market system in the game. You could basically buy with in-game currency all the gear up until like really high end, and then by that point you already know the game well enough to the point where you can get it yourself. But if you were a new player, there are multiple ways of gearing up and gear progression, such as like enhancing your own gear yourself. And what's the point of that? Nothing. The real answer of progressing and why you should do it yourself is because you get your name on an item, which can anyone see it? Not really, unless you sell it. So at the end of the day, do you like having your name on your gear to say you did it yourself? If yes, then do it. If you don't, just buy the gear. So there's no RNG involved if you don't want it to be. Next question I had, what is the cash shop like in this game? Okay, so there's a lot of things. I have a dedicated video on, you know, how to browse the cash shop efficiently and what I think are important things so you don't waste all your money on it. So as I just want to talk about the important things. So things you would probably think of getting as a new player. Where is it? Hold on. So the value pack, consider this your monthly subscription. Sometimes it goes on sale and everything. Sometimes there are discounts like now. And basically this is your $15 equivalent a month sub, and you get all this stuff. There are other things that help you in this game, such as like, you know, these are more cosmetics, but like pets are something that are not only cosmetic, but if you like grinding, they help pick up loot, which is kind of normal in MMOs. You kind of see that. So that is something that I would always recommend as well. What other things are there? There's like, you know, a tent, which allows you to do everything in one. And, you know, there's a lot of other cosmetics and stuff, which they do give you stats, which is borderline pay to win, depending on how you look at it. But is it super noticeable? If you had it, would it make you a better player? No. However, there are a lot of other things that are more just convenient, and other subscriptions, which are like basically timed buffs, which are these things. And, you know, weight and inventory, you could buy that as well. Worker space, storage, and everything. But one thing I want to also mention is every day you play the game, you get 200 loyalties. Loyalties are in-game currency as well, which you can get a bunch of these stuff. Some of these are set monthly. So yeah, it's not like you're completely locked out. Sometimes you can get the same things. And they also have like newer bundles for it. And so what is the cost of everything? So keep in mind, this is on the North American server, so like prices are in USD. Basically, consider all of these, like 100 pearls is the equivalent of $1, and then like let's say 10,000 pearls is $100. A lot of these are kind of similar to how you would see it in other games as well. So just to give you an idea of what the in-app purchases would look like, it's that. So that's like a real example, and then you can go up to like 200 at once. But yeah, it's nothing surprising or out of the ordinary. It's very similar to other games that if this is not your first MMO, this is what it looks like. And then every week they have a new sale and everything, so very standard. All right, so next thing. This is probably an important question that I've also told my friends about. What is the efficiency of a low spender or a free-to-play player? How far can you realistically get? How inconvenienced will you be if you don't spend a lot of money, or any, if any? So I think there's a lot of convenient things, but can you still play the game fine without spending any? I think the answer is yes, because a lot of things that are like permanent that you can pay for is somewhat obtained in game as well. It's just kind of like a timer. So like, let's say you have to reset something every week or two, just get a new one, versus if you want to pay for a permanent one. So an example would be the camping tool, which allows you to buy buffs from your, you know, camping tool tent. You could do all this in game without spending $1. You just do some quests, get some stuff, reset it. It expires weekly, so you'd have to do that again. And essentially the same thing, but on a timer. How well will you be able to do without spending money on pets? So to give you a realistic thing, I did, when I first started the game, I got my pets. I wanted the best, well, not really best ones. I just wanted to have like good tier 4 highest tier pets. So I did that, but then over time they just kind of give you all of these for free, and some like even tier 4s. So after I got my pets, I never bought a single one again, and a lot of these were like given out. And actually I might have bought one, but that's a very specific case that you don't really need until you know you need it. But realistically, if you play games during like holidays and seasonals, that's when they kind of give you a lot of the good stuff. So if a holiday is coming up, chances are they're probably going to give you something that you would normally have to pay for. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty generous. You can also get it off the market as well, and everything else. In terms of gear, we talked about that in a previous question, which is like, can you buy it or get it yourself? Will it be RNG? I think the answer is it really just comes down to how much you play, and you can skip all the RNG and get it. But once you get to the end game, that's a little bit different, whereas you have to kind of make it yourself and can't buy it. But ultimately, do you need any money, like real money spent? No, you'll be fine. All right, so classes and balance. Oh boy. Okay, so what makes BDO unique? We talked about this a little bit earlier, how there are like 30 classes in this game. So balance in this game, it's all over the place. The hard truth is, when you have a lot of classes in this game, it's hard to balance it. Some classes are better than the others. There's always a meta that we all know. And I think ultimately, realistic numbers would be not just in BDO, but like all games in general. The amount of people who actually do PvP is probably less than like 5% of the entire community. Those are the people who are like dedicated PvPers. Everyone else is, you know, between casual to, you know, I guess, what is the word for that? Like, enthusiast, I guess. And people who just play this game, you know, like they get off of work, play a few hours a day, and you'll do fine. So ultimately, if you want to play the meta, you can do that. But my recommendation for everyone is when you look at the list of classes in the game and you're like, what do I do? I think the answer would be find a class you like, just play that one. If you don't like it, try another one. But, you know, like, just what would you normally play and find something similar to it. And if you don't know, leave it in the comments. I usually tell people, if you don't know what you want to play, give me a description of what kind of playstyle you like. So, for example, if you like playing tank characters in other games, I'll recommend a few things that are close to it. Or if you play like other games, do you like playing support, assassin type characters that are like mages, casters? I'll point you in the right direction and then help you decide on all of that. Or you could join the Discord, and I'm also happy to answer questions there. So there's a lot of classes. Balance is all over the place. If you want to play the meta, I can point you in that right direction as well, or just whatever you think is fun. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a game. Just play what you like. And the last thing I want to talk about, there's actually a lot of things total, but I just chose what I think are important, is what is there to do on a daily basis in this game? What, like, kind of community, what kind of events are there? And what makes BDO unique? So I talked about this a little bit earlier, or at least I mentioned it, is that Black Desert is more of a event-driven game. And what does that mean? It's kind of like every patch, there's a weekly patch, and every now and then they bring out like new things, whether it's for PvP, whether it's for PvE, or just, you know, casual life skills. And that affects the economy based on what's happening. A lot of events that happen. And to give you an idea of what it looks like, so every event generally has some sort of event currency, right? And then you spend all your event currencies. I know this is confusing for a new player, but it's like you get the event currency, buy the things you want, which this is a new thing they added a couple of years ago. And these event currencies used to expire. And so you have to like actually play every day and then, you know, think about what you want in a time frame. Nowadays, they just sorted it out. So like if you have it and you don't know what you want, it's just saved, and then there's less of a rush. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do. So life skilling. There's also PvP, PvE, grinding. If people have ever described BDO to you and they're like, oh, there's a lot of grinding circles, that's not really what people want to hear, to be honest. Or there's a lot of RNG enhancing to upgrade your gear. Yeah, there's that too, but we also talked about you don't have to do that as well. And I think the hardest thing is this: if you are a BDO player and you've been playing this game for years, the hardest thing to do is describe this game to someone who's never heard of it before. Because the first thing you would think of is grinding, questionably balanced PvP, enhancing RNG. But it's like, yeah, people don't want to hear that. But I don't know, like if that wasn't appealing, this game would be gone already. So there's like, they definitely did some things right. And so I think that, would I recommend checking this game out if I were you and that you've never heard of it? I think so. Yeah, like worst comes to worst, you play it for like a few days, maybe a few weeks, and you just don't like it. How much would you lose? I would say the game is probably like $10 on average on your any given day. It does go on sale a lot. I do believe they have a free trial, and so like it's not that bad. It's not a full price game. There is spending in the game, but I also think most people will do just fine with, you know, how we talked about in the beginning of, let's say you only had $100 to spend on this game. Yeah, I think you'll do just fine on that. There's a lot of stuff that you could do without it. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, whether you're a PvPer or you do PvE or you just like playing solo casually and life skilling. I think I would recommend this game to a lot of people. But if you have any questions on anything more specific that I didn't cover, I'm happy to answer, and you could just drop it in the comments and I'll see what I can do to try to point you in the right direction or answer your questions. So with that said, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, or you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I would love to see you guys come back. And I do make a lot of videos. To give you an idea, I've been playing this game once again since 2016. So I've seen the game progress from the very start until today, and I still have fun. I don't play it as super hardcore, but I would consider myself, or at least from the infograph that I looked at, like in the top 1%. So for what that's worth, I think I have a good understanding of the game in general. So yeah, I think I'm out for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.